Hi guys, today this tech talk is about the overview of artificial intelligence, and this tech talk will be divided into two parts. Today we are going to do the first part, which is going to consist with what is AI, stages of AI, types of AI, and the branches of AI. And there are 7 branches we will focus throughout the overview series. And today we will be discussing on expert systems and neural networks. Let's start with what is artificial intelligence. As you all know, this is a very broader question which may have many answers to this. But as simple definition, we can say AI is science and engineering of making intelligent machines. Today we are discussing about self-driving cars, robots working in factories, and many more types of machines which can demonstrate some level of intelligence. To make it happen, we need to embed intelligence into the machines, which are silicon chips. We have to embed that intelligence to the machines to get things done. By learning AI, you learn how to embed intelligence into the machines. That's it all about. It has defined all the processes, science, and engineering behind making intelligent machines. Normally, intelligent systems demonstrate human behaviors like planning, learning, reasoning, problem solving, knowledge representation, perception, motion, manipulation, and social intelligence and creativity. These are some of the behaviors which demonstrates by AI systems. And I think now you all got the idea what's artificial intelligence. It's the science and engineering of making intelligent machines. And the stages of artificial intelligence. Here we are discussing about 3 stages. The first one is narrow intelligence. The second one is general intelligence. And third one is super intelligence. When it comes to narrow intelligence, it says specialize in one area and solve one problem. That's what it does. It's designed to solve one single problem and would be able to execute a single task really well. By definition, they have a narrow capability, right? That you have to understand. But all of the systems we are seeing today is having narrow intelligence. I'm saying all of the systems, not a single system we have seen which can perform in general intelligence and super intelligence. Let's take Siri as an example. Siri can talk, but it can't play chess or drive a car as normal human being, or do some other have another skill which can demonstrate as a human being. Like if you take Deep Blue, it can play chess or do some of the intellectual tasks, but it can't drive a vehicle or talk to people. Likewise, there are a certain set of systems in the world right now in the artificial intelligence space which can do fixing which is like focus on a narrow area of intelligence. There are multiple solutions, but each solution will have their own area of intelligence. I think you got that point. And the general intelligence, we are talking about the machines with human level cognitive functions. It will be a smart machine as a human. It will be smart as a human across the board. It will be able to talk to people or talk to another intelligent machine and have social intelligence, creativity, and learn new skills. It can do a lot of things, and it has general intelligence. Still, we haven't reached it, the general intelligence, but people are trying to, scientists are working, developers are working day and night to make it happen within next 20 to 30 years. And super intelligence, it's the ultimate phase where AI can reach a system which will be able to surpass all human capabilities. It would include decision making, taking rational decisions, and even includes like things like making better art, build emotion relationships with other intelligent beings. It's the last level AI can reach, but after 55 years, after the 55 years of Dartmouth conference, which they have coined the artificial intelligence term, we have only reached up to narrow intelligence, but scientists are believing that they will be able to get into general intelligence and super intelligence within next 2 to 3 decades. All right. let's move on to types of AI. Here we are doing the same thing, but based on the functionality of the AI system, we categorize them into 4 areas. First one is reactive machine AI. In here, you can see in the description, has no memory. It has no memory. Only respond to different stimuli. Right. This is the most basic AI type, but it's still quite useful when it comes to applications. It reacts to existing conditions and provide predictable output based on the receives inputs. I can give you an example for this. Let's think Deep Blue, which has won the match against chess world champion Garry Kasparov. I think you already know about that chess match. It has the capability of winning a chess game throughout creating a learning model. It has a learned model embedded into it, which can play a match with chess champion and win it. You can see, even though reactive AI is the basic AI type, it has a lot of potential and it has a lot of use cases. It is powerful. One of the main characteristics of reactive machines are it will never adapt to the current environment or new situations. It will never learn. It has a learned model and it will provide the same output for same inputs all the time. It's not going to change based on the environment or the new situations or experience. It's a constant model which we have already trained. When it comes to, but again, I want to give some examples. Like there are some, you already know that there is a spam filter on our Gmail or email box, and Netflix recommendation system. Those are all reactive systems which has already trained and doing a specific task. It never learns new things. It works as expected. When it comes to limited memory, this is somewhat equal to reactive AI, but it has embedded some of the learning models inside the application. What it will do is it will adjust the values or adjust the decision-making process based on the learning models. It will learn while providing the outputs. It can, that's what the difference between reactive and limited memory AI models. In reactive AI, it adapts to the environment and new situations. Let's think, I will give you an example. Self-driving car is one of the good examples for this. When you take a self-driving car in USA, it will adapt to that environment and the road conditions. But when it comes to Sri Lanka, it will have to adapt to our conditions. Likewise, it will improve by the experience and learn all the time and improve their decision-making process. The next one is theory of mind. This is an important aspect of AI because it has all the social interactions and emotional understanding pieces into this. Currently, we don't have an AI system with full capability of theory of mind, but there is a interesting example called robot called Sophie. I think you all know that robot. If you are not familiar with, please check it on YouTube. The robot's name is Sophie, and it can have human level interaction, some level of human interactions with emotional intelligence with the people, but it's not 100% up to the capabilities up to now, but it demonstrate that theory of mind can be reachable in some day. you can check it out. It's a interesting video. You can check it on YouTube. And self-aware, this is again equal to general intelligence, human-like intelligence and self-awareness. We haven't reached it yet, but people say that we will reach it within our timeline, our lifetime. That's about these four. Now you know that we have reactive, limited, theory of mind, and self-aware. Reactive is a learned model which is not going to learn again. Limited memory is an AI system which learns throughout the time and give outputs. Theory of mind has emotional intelligence and social interactions aspect to limited memory. And self-aware is human level AI. These are the four types and branches of AI. In this series, we will discuss about these 7 branches: expert systems, neural networks, fuzzy logic, machine learning, natural language processing, robotics, and genetic algorithm. Today we will discuss about the expert system and neural networks based on the time we have. And let's move to expert systems. Here you can see an expert system is emulating decision-making ability of a human expert. It emulates decision-making ability of a human expert, and it do the reasoning through bodies of knowledge, represent mainly as if-then rules in knowledge base. It has 2 parts. One is the knowledge base. The second one is reasoning. Let's think, how do doctors diagnose patients? Let's think you are having a stomach ache and you are going to doctor, right? When you go to doctor and you tell your symptoms, what he will do is he will have the knowledge, facts and rules regarding the symptoms and the diseases, right? He will filter out unnecessary rules from his knowledge base, and he will ask questions from you and get more facts and symptom details, and he will filter out his knowledge base and do the diagnosis. That's how it happens. All the human beings work like that. Therefore, that's the main concept used in expert systems also. But again, if you are going to create a doctor expert system using if-else conditions, it can't be done. It's going to be like hundreds of thousands of if-then conditions, right? Therefore, what we do is we have separate conditions, rules and facts within a knowledge base, and there is an inference engine which can select which rules or facts to be taken out to do the diagnosis or to provide the human expert level decision making. I have listed down some of the examples for expert system. If you want, you can check it on YouTube or any other platform. You will be able to see how it performs. Then let's talk about how expert systems work. First of all, we take knowledge in if-then rule-based format into a knowledge base. After that, we create a user interface for user to interact with, because you will not be able to directly call to inference engine because normal user will not know how to talk to it. Therefore, there will be a user interface which users can type their questions based on this domain, and it will go to inference engine. It selects the facts and rules to apply when trying to answer the user's query. It says that inference engine will select the facts and rules from the knowledge based on the queries provided by end user. And we have knowledge base. It has all the facts and rules related to this domain. in if then else rules format, right? Now you can see, now we take the knowledge from expert and added it to the knowledge base, and we have the inference engine to select correct rules based on the queries. To add queries, we have user interface. These are the three parts in expert system working together to make it happen. When we talk about the components of expert system, we can, now you already know there should be a knowledge base, inference engine. The main aspect of, one of the main aspects of this is how the knowledge acquisition and learning model work, because we have to take the knowledge, acquire the knowledge from the human expert and put it into the knowledge base in if else then conditions, because this is a crucial part in expert system. We have to do it carefully, because that's the main bread and butter of this system. And user interface, it's interact with user. Explanation model, normally most of the system, AI systems, does not have explanation how they have arrived with a decision. In expert system, you have that. Expert system, it can explain what are the rules it has used to come up with the decision, and it can drill it down, and it can show it in the UI why you get this decision, what are the rules based on this decision, likewise. And the expert advantages and limitations of expert systems. When it comes to advantages, the availability is high. It can be 24/7 available because it's a software. Less production cost and speed, and less error rate because we don't have human errors. Low risk, because this can be implemented in environments that are dangerous to humans also, like nuclear plants, or like anywhere you want to have a expert system where humans can't go, or it's dangerous for human, we can have this. Steady response, because it does not have motions, tensions, and fatigue. It is a system, therefore it will be able to give these steady responses. It will never clutter the decisions based on these motion, tension, and fatigue. Limitations of the expert system is unable to make creative responses, because there will be a lot of extraordinary situations, and it will not be able to create new responses. It has to come through the knowledge base, and errors in the knowledge base can lead to wrong decisions. If we have some error in knowledge base, it will give wrong decisions. And maintenance cost is expensive, because we always have to update the expert system. If it's a like very steady domain, then it's okay, but if you want to add more facts and figures each and every day, then it's a costly process. But again, if it's not it does not want to update each and every day, then it will be less production cost. Sometimes the solution from a human expert can also be different and more creative. Normally humans has creativity, therefore humans can provide creative decisions, which is not according to the rule. We can bend the rules as we want, but expert system can't do it because it's embedded into their knowledge base. I think you got some level of understanding about what are expert systems. Expert system has knowledge base, inference engine, and user interface. It takes knowledge from a human expert, and we input into the knowledge base in if-else format. And inference engine is there to select the correct rules, and to communicate with user, there is a UI. That's about it. Expert system. This is one of the easiest implementations you can do and test it out. There are a lot of frameworks for expert systems. You can get a framework and implement your expert system and see how it works. And artificial neural networks. This is a network of artificial neurons which is supposed to do a specific task. You know that artificial neural network is already inspired by biological brain. You can see that we have neurons in our brain, and basically our brain is a network of neurons, right? It has a lot of neurons, and it takes electrical inputs and work as a network to provide output as the action or the decision. Likewise, like brain gets electrical signals, and there is a neural network of neurons, and that electrical signals go through this network of neurons and gives the output. That's what happening in our brain. I have a small, it has to be started. Yeah, you can see our brain. It has neurons in it. This is how it looks like in our brain. It takes inputs as the electrical signals, and it flows through the it may be depend on the input you are getting. There is all the time there will be a subnetwork of neural network which will get activated, at an electrical signal will flow through it in multiple layers, and it will come out as the output. This is how our brain works. This is the concept we are using for artificial neural networks also. And this is a sample neural network. You can see it has multiple layers of neurons. These are neurons. You can see we have input layer, hidden layer, and output layer. It has 3 layers in this neural network, and you get the input to input layer, and there is a hidden layer of neurons, and it gives the output to output layer. I will explain how it works in a later slide, but for now this is a simple diagram of a simple neural network. Now you all heard about deep learning, right? What is deep learning? Deep learning is just having multiple layers, more than 3 layers in a neural network. If a neural network has more than 3 layers, then it's a deep learning neural network. The deep you go, the deep you can train. That's how it works. You can see there are like simple neural network, you have a single hidden layer, but deep learning neural network, you have multiple hidden layers. That's the difference between the neural network and deep learning neural networks. Right. I think you got this point because most of the people are like not sure why deep learning neural network is different from a neural network, normal neural network. This is why it's different. There are a lot of frameworks for deep learning neural network, but base is here. Base is this. Now see what are the parts of a single neuron. Now this is a single neuron within a neural network itself, right? We have inputs. Inputs are signals you are getting from outside of environment, or it can be another neuron or multiple neurons providing input to the base. Now we have multiple inputs here, 1 to n, and it comes to the weights. These are the weights you have. What it does is it has a numerical value in it, and it multiplies the input by the weight itself and move it to the net input function. this can be sum, or some people are using multiplication also for this function based on the requirement. And it will add bias also in net input function. What it does is it will take all the multiplications of weightages and inputs and sum it up and add bias to like make it more accurate and send it to the activation function. Here what it does is it has multiple activation. There are multiple types of activation functions. You can get sigmoid, tanh, softmax, relu, and there are a lot of activation functions you can use for this. What it does is it decide whether this neuron is going to be activated or not based on the value it gets, or it change the format of the value it gets and give as the output. That's what it does. Sometimes this decides to not to send output from this neuron onwards. That's how this neural network is collection of these components, these neurons. Neuron will have these components, and neural network will consist of these neurons. Now I'll show you an interesting example. This is output. Output can go to another neuron or directly to the environment. Right. This is an example how neural network works. You get inputs and it will be multiplied by the weightages, and bias will be added to it in net input function, and there will be a activation function which decide what's the output is. Here you can see normally at any given time these weightages bias are not changing like this, right? That we have to understand. Here what shows is how it learns based on the error rate it gets. There are a lot of algorithms like backpropagation to change these weightages bias to get the correct output with the lowest error rate, right? Now this is how bias and weightages are changing, and based on that net input function gives output, and it will go to the activation function. You can see here we have 7, 6, or like we have some values, but with activation function it restricts data from -1 to 1. You can see that, and output will be within 1 and -1. Likewise, this is how a single neuron works and trained, right? Now let's see an example how it works. These each one is a single neuron. You can see number 7 has been divided into multiple pixels, divided into multiple inputs and added into the first layer of input neurons, neural input layer, and it will go through the two hidden layers. You can see some of the neurons will activated and some of them will not, right? You can see that, and it will give the answer. Now this is in 3D. If you want to understand it, this is how it works in 3D. Here you can see this will activate some of the neurons in the second layer. It will activate some of the neurons in third layer. Likewise, it will go through and it will select the correct answer. And this is how neural networks are trained. You can see it's going forward and coming backward also. What is happening is, if the answer is wrong, it will check the error rate, error difference, and calculate the error of the output, and it updates the weightages and the bias to support to get the minimum error, right? Now you can see this is how single neuron works. in this network. You can see it on the right hand side. This is how a single neuron trains within this application. And there are multiple types of neural networks. Perceptron, feed-forward networks, multi-layer perceptron, radial-based networks, convolutional neural networks, recurrent neural networks, long short-term memory networks. Likewise, there are a lot of, these are the main networks we have. And I think most of the time you hear about convolutional neural networks because it's used for image processing. There are a lot of neural network architectures you can use like this. We are planning to discuss each of these neural network type on our artificial intelligence team discussions, but I think with time limit we will not be able to cover any of these things in this session. We have that plan to discuss about each and every neural network type and give an understanding about what it does and how it works and what are the architectural patterns it uses. Likewise, when it comes to advantages of neural networks, it store information on the entire network. It will not like stop because of one neuron is not working. It will depend on the whole network. Therefore, it's reliable, good fault tolerance, distributed memory, because each neuron has their weightages and bias. It has a distributed memory. Because of that, it will like fault tolerance. Again, it will fault tolerance, and ability to train machines using backpropagation or any other algorithm. You can train this. The ability of parallel processing. This can do the parallel processing also. And disadvantages of neural network. This is very hardware dependence because this has this needs high processing power for this. Therefore, it's hardware dependence. And unexplained functioning of the network. We can't explain what is happening inside, like how solution is produced, because it's a black box source. It change the weightages and bias and give an output, right? It trains and it gives an output. It's same as our brain. We can't say how human brain is working and how it gets decision. We know that it takes inputs, electrical signals as input, flow through the neurons and give the output, but we don't know what are the exact values in neurons, right? Likewise, we can't explain how it works. Not have an accurate proper network structure because structure is changing based on the inputs and output we are giving. Therefore, it's most of the time, and again the important part in here is for each problem we have to select how many number of nodes we have to given, how many layers we have to provide, and what are the functions we are going to use, what is the activation function we are going to use, and what are the starting weightages we are going to use. Likewise, but there's no proper structure for that. We can't say for self-driving car you have to use this much of nodes and this much of layers or something like that. We have to guess it, and we have to do trial and error to understand what's the best solution for that. The difficulty of showing the problem to the network, because ANN is working as numerical values, right? You can see that weightages are updating and weightages are multiplying with integers, and it gives answers. Therefore, every input has to be a numerical value. We have to convert our problems into numerical values. It's a challenge for a lot of people, and it's a difficulty. The duration of network is unknown. This is true up to a certain degree because sometimes it not gives correct results because of the training sets he has got and everything. These are the disadvantages we have, but anyway, neural network is one of the key neural networks are one of the key areas in AI, and most people believe in neural networks will be the next breakthrough which we can create general intelligence, but we never know, because why people believe that is this is equal to human brain. You can see that yeah, this may be the future of AI. We never know, but it's better to learn neural networks when you learn AI. That's all for today, and there are some other topics to be discussed on part 2, like fuzzy logic, genetic algorithms, machine learning, and other stuffs. But for today, we will conclude this session. Do you have any questions? I think no one has questions. If you have any questions, please let me know through an email, or you can message me anytime and ask any issues, any explanations if you want. Please let me know. I'll happy to help you on this. And if you are willing to join AI and machine learning team, please let us know. Then we will be discussing a lot of these concepts within weekly meetings. Therefore, please let us know if you can join the AI team. But anyway, we are going to limit the number of people, because we believe that quality is better than the quantity. Therefore, we have to have, like, at maximum we will take is like 20 people, but others can join. But most of the time, what we think is it's better to have 20 people's team and move forward. If you can join, please let us know. Right. Thank you, guys.